Okay, so we've gone ahead and looked at clothing, eyes, hair, we got wigs and everything, and your face up and maintenance and blah! So now that all that is taken care of, well, the most important thing is exactly what kind of doll do you want? Obviously, we're looking at a male doll for you, particularly, my dear friend. um, Anyways, I think that probably what you are going to want to do is go ahead and pick through a whole bunch of different doll sites and pick out your favorite sculpt. A really important thing to look at is whether you want posability or you want beauty, because sometimes you have to sacrifice one for the other. Another thing to look at is exactly what you want for price range. If you are on a budget and you don't particularly want to pay a whole bunch for an expensive doll, there are sites that you can look at that are a little bit cheaper than others. Dollmore is a good place. If you want like a Bobobi or like Resin Soul or something like that, then that is a good route to go. A good place to buy it's based here in the US for cheap dolls is the Junkie Spot. I mean, they're still pretty good quality, and if you want to check out some Junkie Spot reviews and things like that, the best person to go to is Asenva on YouTube. So she's pretty awesome, and she does a whole bunch of Junkie Spot reviews, and I'll link like tons of different things down in the description for different doll companies, some that are based here in the US, ones that I, for a fact that I know are legit, and you're not going to end up having to worry about recast crap, because if you buy from like eBay or some unknown company, there's always the risk of recasts. Like this head here is a recast, and that's perfectly fine because it's only a practice head. This is just for face up practice, and it's only for that. I'm not going to attach it to a body. I'm not going to do like a whole bunch of weird things with it. Recasts are great for like if you want to do modding or something practice that you're not terrified of destroying it, because they're like 10 times cheaper. Like normally I'm looking at SD size heads with like no face up or anything, and they run usually around $60, sometimes even more, but I got that one for like $20, and I'm not afraid to ruin it because it was cheap. But if I had gotten myself a $60 head, I would be terrified to even touch it. So that's something that you always have to pay attention to. Another thing you need to know about your dolls is they are strung with elastic, and they have hooks inside them, and there's all sorts of weird ways that they are put together. Each doll might be strung a little bit differently than the next. It just differs from company to company and exactly how the doll is made. So that's something you always have to keep an eye on. Getting forceps is a good idea to help you string your doll, and you're going to have to learn how to restring because it needs to be done at least once a year, if not more. Just depends on how often you play with your doll. Sometimes they can be strung a little bit too tight or a little bit too loose, so that's something that you might end up having to fix if your doll comes in strung in a particular way that you don't like. Being strung too tight can be kind of dangerous for your doll because it can crack, so be careful about that one. If they're too loose, then often their legs are kicky and they don't hold poses very well, and things like that, so that's something else that's pretty important. Restringing is something I've never done myself, so I can't really help you too much with that. Best thing to do is look at some restringing videos, and she doesn't need stringing at all. She has a peg system. So that's another thing to look into if you want a doll that doesn't have to have any sort of stuff like that. Then you can get her, like, for peg systems, but that's not exactly what you want. My friend is looking for something completely different than that. She is particularly interested in getting a male doll, and she's basing it off of an adult male that she knows. So that's what she is going to be doing, and Miyu is not wanting to stand up straight for some stupid reason. Whatever, Miyu. Face dive. That's another thing you need to watch out for. Make sure your dolls don't fall or end up smacking on something because you can chip their face up, you can put scratches in them or dents or cracks, so that's not good. If their face up gets chipped, sometimes it's pretty dang noticeable, and when that happens, it's not exactly easy to fix, so you might end up having to redo the entire face up. Face ups are kind of hard to protect if you're sending them somewhere without a face mask. So buying face masks, if you plan on doing a face up commission for someone, go and pay them to do it and have your stuff shipped out. That's always a good idea, to get a face mask and bubble wrap it pretty dang good or something. So that's always something to look into. There's differences in joints. There's the double joint system and the single joint system for arms and legs. Some double joints tend to look very boxy and square-ish, but they do have more posability. Single jointed systems tend to look prettier, but there's not as much posability. Then there are also torso joints you need to look at. And torso joints are pretty great. Like, okay, I'm gonna a tiny bit of doll nudity here. I'm pulling the top of her dress down, and I'm going to show you her torso joints, just so you can kind of get an idea. Some come with a single joint, and the single joint usually is just up here, underneath the bust, like, or around the rib cage, that sort of thing. And that allows side-to-side movement, slouching, and it assists with sitting. And some have two joints, and there's this one down here. And that allows for a little bit more side-to-side movement, and again, assists with sitting and slouching. Usually, there are a lot of dolls that just have just the knee joints, but there are some that have like a swivel joint, which will be about right here, and that kind of helps with sitting and weird leg positions. What? Thank you! But anyways, yeah, that is what you're going to be looking at for joints. Another thing to check is just head movement. So you're probably going to want to have one that has decent head movement as well and can probably stand pretty well. Before you actually go and buy your doll, it's always a great idea to go and look online, see if you can find anyone who has reviews on your doll that you're wanting to get, like if there's any particular problems with it. Also check feedback for the company, because you're going to want to know what the waiting time is. Do they have like a really, really, really long waiting time? Are they kind of bad about that? Do they make a lot of mess ups and orders? Things like that. So that's really what you're going to want to check into. This is pretty much all the information that I've checked up on. Yeah, Simba, whatever. He's driving me crazy because he keeps making me change the movies. Can you just settle on one movie and like help me, please? Oh God, I'm done here. Bye.